Thanks for joining me on episode 562 of the Inspired Stewardship Podcast.
I'm David Smith, author of Who's Got Your Back? Making and Keeping Great Friendships Among Men. I encourage you to invest in others, develop your influence, and impact the world by using your time, your talents, and your treasures to live out your calling. Having the ability to build real, lasting friendships as a man is vital to doing this. And one way to be inspired to do that is to listen to this, the Inspired Stewardship Podcast, with the leadership provided by Scott Mayer.
If they're a marginalized person, if they're someone in a group that is looked at and looked down upon, it may be the only chance they have to be heard and listened to and understood. And you could deliver that by focusing what your gifts are and focusing on helping just one person. Welcome and thank you for joining us on the Inspired Stewardship Podcast. If you truly desire to become the person who God wants you to be, then you must learn to use your time, your talent, and your treasures for your true calling. In the Inspired Stewardship Podcast, you will learn to invest in yourself, invest in others, and develop your influence so that you can impact the world. In today's Spiritual Foundation episode about investing in others, I talk with you about why sometimes having a big, hairy, audacious goal is really about focusing on just one person, and how that means that you can still have a kingdom impact, and how having a God-sized goal doesn't mean that you don't focus on the individual. Oftentimes, one of the things that can hold us back from really investing in others and helping others along the way is this feeling that we've got to have a big, hairy, audacious goal. That's something that Jim Collins uses as a term that he's coined in business, but it's also something that comes to us around the area of spirituality as well, because I've talked before about having a God-sized goal, letting God dictate the size of your purpose and your calling rather than you, because often we think too small and we hold ourselves back and we have fear because of that. But what's interesting is sometimes it is actually a big, hairy, audacious goal to focus on one individual. I've heard a story before of a group of government and non-government employees that sat down and had an opportunity to meet with the folks that are now running the organization that was started by Mother Teresa back in the 50s. And Mother Teresa had this goal of eliminating poverty. But what's interesting is when she worked there in India in what's now Calcutta, she never set out and said her goal was to eliminate all poverty in Calcutta. Instead, when they talked to the folks and they said, what was Mother Teresa's big, hairy, audacious goal? She said, she never really had a big, hairy, audacious goal. She was simply focused on helping one person at a time. That when she sat down with new people as they came on board the organization, she would listen to them and give them all of her attention and focus on them. And when she was helping someone who was in poverty and needed assistance, she would listen and she would talk with them and she would love on them and she would focus completely on them. And if you think about it, there in Calcutta, there's some of the largest numbers of poor people ever anywhere in the world. It's poverty like most of us in the United States have never seen before. And instead of looking at it as this massive group of people where she had to set up huge systems and processes and all of this stuff to affect change, she simply started helping one person at a time. And what's interesting about that is What's funny is oftentimes when we set really big goals, we feel like we've accomplished something. Having that big goal makes us think we've done something. But the truth is, where the rubber hits the road, where the actual work gets done, is in that one-on-one interaction. Oftentimes, having an impact on the kingdom, discipling to someone else, reaching someone else and helping them grow and move along, investing in others isn't about setting out to change the world. It's about setting out to help one person and focusing on that one person with caring and with kindness, making the right decisions, treating people with respect and dignity, and focusing on that person with laser-like intensity. This is a huge kingdom impact, because the truth is, for many people, it's the only time they will have ever been heard, especially if they're a marginalized person, if they're someone in a group that is looked at and looked down upon. It may be the only chance they have to be heard and listened to and understood. And you could deliver that by focusing what your gifts are and focusing on helping just one person with those gifts. And the truth is, oftentimes that is a God-sized goal. And it's not necessarily about stopping with that one person either. The truth is, if you help one person at a time, eventually you'll have helped a bunch of people. But if you focus on helping a bunch of people, oftentimes you won't help anyone at all. One of the things that I've been working on this week is reviewing for folks that are undergoing a training that I teach around how to become a financial coach. We're talking about dialing in and figuring out who is it that you really want to serve. And I constantly encourage them to focus on a real person, to focus in on an individual, to be able to tell their story, to be able to speak like they speak and walk their walk, because the truth is, that's how we reach people. That's how we help people. We do it one person at a time. And by doing that, we can actually change the world. So I ask you, who are the people that you are called to serve? Can you tell one of their stories? Can you name one of their names? Can you put a face to that name? And out of doing that, you would have a God-sized ability to build the kingdom one person at a time. Thanks for listening. Thanks so much for listening to the Inspired Stewardship podcast. As a subscriber and listener, we challenge you to not just sit back and passively listen, but act on what you've heard and find a way to live your calling. If you enjoyed this episode, do me a favor. Go over to facebook.com/inspired stewardship and like our Facebook page and mark it that you'd like to get notifications from us so that we can connect with you on Facebook and make sure that we're serving you to the best of our abilities with time and tips there. Until next time, invest your time, your talent, and your treasures. Develop your influence and impact the world.